All right, everybody. Welcome to Purpose Driven, Vision Inspired, the podcast where we explore the powerful intersection of purpose and vision in shaping our paths to success. I'm your host, Richard Cerna, the performance strategist, and each week we will dive deep into the stories, strategies, and insights of those who have turned their passion into purpose and their vision into reality. Whether you're an entrepreneur or a leader, or simply someone seeking more meaning in your work and life, this podcast is here to inspire, educate, and empower you to live with intention and achieve your true potential. So let's embark on this journey together by introducing our esteemed guest, Demond Logan, who is a mindset development specialist. Demond is a mindset development specialist and high performance coach. He works with entrepreneurs, top executives, and business owners, helping them break through self-imposed limitations to achieve greater success and overcome the challenges that cause them to plateau. Demond, how you doing, brother?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Super excited to have you. Honored to have you as our first honorary guest here on the Purpose Driven Vision Inspired podcast. And I can't wait to dive into mindset with you this evening. I've got to say to all the viewers out there, I've learned so much from Demond. We've been accountability brothers for a long time, and we've been friends and brothers for a long time. And I just got to say how much I respect his approach to mindset development. And all I got to say is you are in store for a treat for today. So I always like to start off our podcast with a proper definition and the simple terms definition. So we're going to go ahead and start off with what is mindset, right? So modern dictionary says the established set of attitudes held by someone. And to me, that might be a little proper, right? So if we go into simple terms and just every day where we can all understand, in simple terms, your mindset is a set of beliefs that shape how you make sense of the world and yourself. I think that's key, is not just the world, but yourself. And I'd like to dive into that, Demond. I shared my definition and the internet's definition, but how would you define mindset or the power of mindset?
I would agree with your simple term definition. The big part about it, which you did highlight, is that mindset is a relationship. It's
Mm,
defined by all of that factor of relationship with you to the external. So it's a way that you're going to process both your inputs and your outputs. So that's the
excellent.
biggest power relationship people have, because without that relationship, you have no way to gauge mindset.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. I love the way you break it down, and just going to keep rolling with that one, right? So, let's dive into that and kind of what you do. And so, I'd like to ask, kind of, can you share a bit about your journey and what led you to focus on the power of mindset?
Okay. That's always an interesting question because there are so many like very key pivotal points. But to put it in a nutshell, for me, it was a necessity. Like
Okay.
my life was my life was just not making sense for me. Like
Okay.
um it was like I felt stuck. I couldn't move. I didn't know what was going on. I tried to research, learn, and try different things, and on the surface, a lot of things just didn't work. So what I started doing is looking at things, and I realized that when I was looking at it, I could see the layers that the concept missed.
Mm,
I could develop
okay.
it and then create it and shift it into very simple, actionable steps that were universally applicable. Um,
Nice.
I had to guinea pig myself. There were some very, very key moments. I give you a key moment. Um, so this is a key moment of my, this is a, now we gonna, because it's you, we're gonna talk.
Let's talk. Let's chop it up.
I'm gonna share a story, a conversation I had with my wife. I don't think I've ever shared it before. But there was a point in our relationship early on, we were married, and I was a person who had a lot of talent, a lot of potential,
Mhm.
and, but I just was very, I couldn't stick with anything. I would
Mm.
anything. It would just shift all over the place, back and forth. And my wife would try to tell me, like, you didn't stick with things long enough. And she said something to me one day, and she said it in the most loving way. She said, you know, we're gonna be together forever,
Mm.
but I do have some concerns. And my concern was that I believe that in the end you're gonna hold me back.
Wow. Well,
Yeah,
first of all, that says a lot about your wife. You got an amazing woman, a strong woman that can
yeah,
speak honestly with you and open. And the fact that you didn't flip a table and sounds like you all had a great conversation means that,
right,
there's
right.
power. Yeah, a lot of
But
power in that love.
a couple of things that are very critical about that delivery, because that was an emotional thing for me.
Mhm.
Was she said, this is the part that made it so impactful. She said it wasn't like, look, you got to get it together, I'm gonna leave you. She said,
Mhm.
I'm committed to you, and I'm committed all the way to a lesser existence because we are together and I'm with you. I just would prefer to, that be the case, because you don't have to be that, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that
Yep.
that really stuck with me, and it really caused me to really assess who I am as a man.
That's powerful, Demond, and I think it's a great segue into the next question I have for you, which it almost kind of leans towards, I think, the direction that you've decided to take with your mindset development and in the profession that you have today. So that question is, what does mindset mean to you, and why do you believe it's crucial in shaping success?
Right. That's because mindset is two things.
Yeah.
It's a cheat code. And it's a cheat code because it is in my mind the only real superpower people have.
Mm,
Because mindset is rooted. All right. So the power structure for mindset is based in free will. You
okay.
have the ability to choose, and that ability to have free will creates different outcomes. It runs up a scale from high value to low value, horrible existence. And our mindset is going to determine our decisions, and our decisions are going to determine our outcome. And there is no other way.
Gotcha.
There is no other way. You cannot change your life without changing what you do, which is requires you to change how you think. So,
Okay.
those are the critical pieces in the power structure to it.
All right. So let's explore that a little bit further. So if we say, exploring mindset into practice, you kind of dove into this already, so I won't read you, dive into this question per se. But what are some common mindset challenges that people face when striving for success, and how can they overcome them? 'Cause I know you've worked with a lot of high level clients now, so
Right. Um,
please expand.
well, the most common issue is that people cross what I call the power line.
Okay.
So
And could you expand on that? Yeah.
I developed a concept called stretch point. I'm sure we'll get into it, so I won't go try to dive the whole concept now. But
Yeah.
the equation that I have for stretch point is R equals get, as in the word R, ARE equals get,
Mhm.
GE. Therefore,
Okay.
get equals R, meaning you are what you get, therefore you get what you are. Right.
Okay.
So that's the general baseline formula that we build the concept of stretch point on. But when I talk about the power line, that people are crossing the power line, the issue is that they are taking internal power that they have to affect change, and they are crossing the power line from the internal to the external. And when you go, when as soon as you
Mhm.
go into the external, you portion that power away to other things that actually have the power to affect.
Oh, wow. That's yeah. Love the perspective. I love the perspective. In some of the executives that you've worked with, how have you seen their dynamic change, and how was it a quick process? Was it slow? Was it like a light? Was there a light bulb moment? Um, what's
Um,
been the norm?
that is an unbelievably interesting question you just asked. Let me tell you
Yeah.
why.
Okay.
So I was working with I was working with and I realized that it's weird, but the better I got,
Mhm.
the longer the process came because I realized that I was digging far deeper than before. So,
Okay.
so the first few executives I worked with, I had an 8-week program, and
Mhm.
I could really have ran them through that thing in 4 or 5 weeks. They were like
Right.
going. So I literally created a 5-week version of it.
Mhm.
It's the exact same program, but it's just at a faster pace. And then as soon as I started that, I had this growth in my development as a specialist and coach. And as soon as that happened, I realized that we were digging way deeper than before into the depths of their foundation for their mindset.
Yeah.
And quickly we had to go right back to that 8-week pace.
Nice, nice. It's like it's not taking a step back to take 10 steps forward. It's let's dive deeper so
Right.
that we can slow down. And I'm trying to correlate the two, but it makes sense in my head. But that's awesome. I appreciate that. Man, you're gonna get me going down a rabbit hole here in a second. So watch out because you know what happens when we do that. So
Yeah, right.
so let's shift a little bit our focus over into mindset and success, right? So in your experience, how does mindset influence not just individual success, but also the culture and performance of a team or organization? 'Cause you know me, that's a big question for me because I'm huge on organizational change and development. So I want to hear it from the mindset perspective.
Um, Mindset. Are you familiar with chaos theory?
With whose theory?
Chaos. The chaos.
Chaos theory. I'm not, but I'm about to get real familiar now.
Yeah, it's this concept. It's why, like, when you hear, I got my dry erase board I use for clients on it. It's why. So when you're training, right, you're
Mhm.
supposed to train and condition yourself to be perfect. That's what you're training for. You're training for perfection, to be as close to perfection as possible, so that when you compound in other, when you get into a different environment, you got these other pressures, it's going to
Mhm.
pull you further and further away from perfect, because it's not
Okay.
a controlled environment like that. But the more you train for perfect, the less it can pull you away from that center.
Mm,
For example, it goes like this. So you're training like this, right? This is the circle you're standing in.
yeah.
But when you get into that environment that you've been training for, that raise, that business pressure, whatever, it starts to spiral out,
Yeah.
starts to spiral out. And this is the chaos we're talking about. When you get into it, starts to spiral out. So this is
Yep.
where you stay now. But it's because you were training like this the whole time. But if
Okay.
you train like that, if you train like this loosely, you'll be all
Mhm.
over the place.
Wow. So it kind of goes to that adage, you play how you practice, right? So um what is it? I heard this one time is practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes and forgive me, I lost it, but
Yeah,
y-
practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes better.
yes, there you go. Practice
Yeah,
makes better. That's awesome. Very cool. That's an interesting thing. So chaos theory is something I'm going to encourage the followers to go look into, especially when they want to look at. Everybody talks about ascending,
mhm,
reaching a higher level, but when the rubber meets the road, how serious, how close to perfection have people been practicing? Their repetition, whether they're taking loose reps or they're taking high quality reps, right?
right.
So very good. Awesome. So can you talk about the difference between, a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, and how shifting from one to the other can transform a person's path to success?
Let me give a different kind of explanation for that, because people get really just regular textbook with it.
Mhm.
Is change possible? Yes or no? Is it possible?
Yes.
Change possible? Yes or no? Is change possible for you? Yes or no? that is the very big difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. A fixed mindset says that this is what it is. I'm stuck here and I can't change, and it's very rigid. Growth
Yeah.
mindset is more fluid, like life is, and says, hey, if
Mhm.
this out that an alternative outcome is as equal as this outcome.
Right.
So I don't have to say,
And what I really like about that is that you could take complex terms and simplify them to where everybody can understand. And I think that's so important because oftentimes we can get lost in the minutia or the oh well, let's be proper here. Well, no, let's call it for what it is, right? That's outstanding. All right. So one more question on mindset and success before we kind of move over into practical advice and some tools that you can suggest our followers dive into. So, and this is one is really I love this question. How important is self-awareness in developing and sustaining a success-oriented mindset?
there
So,
to talk about how important that is,
yeah.
it's they are 100% like it's so critical
Mhm.
that the outcome of the outcome can't exist without it.
Yeah. It's almost like combining critical thinking and emotional intelligence together, wrapping them up in a gift and saying, "Here, if you want to be successful, you need to eat a lot of this.
Right,
Take a
right.
lot of this."
But take that the foundational principle of both of those is
Mhm.
like so even with that concept, right? So that concept is for me how that reads. Sorry, I'm big on my dry erase board, so I gotta
Hey,
get this.
I've got a feeling that our followers are going to be kinesthetic learners. They see, they have to do and touch and
Right.
feel. So, the visuals are great.
So let's say that this is emotional intelligence. And what was the other thing you said? Emotional intelligence and
Critical thinking.
there we go. I just threw a blank. So CT and ET, critical
Mhm.
thinking and emotional should be I, emotional
Yep.
intelligence. Right
Yes, sir.
there. Now, so the piece to that is that mindset in this case is what anchors them together in its own root system.
Mm,
So mindset
mm,
is roots that anchor both of these. These are both expressions of mindset.
okay.
Right. So like both of them are interesting because they're both are expression of mindset, but it's also mixed in with your capacity and ability and natural ability.
Okay. It reminds me, I don't think it's what you're describing, I think is a little different than what's running through my mind, but it reminds me of the ladder of inference, right? Where you have two different perspectives and you got to walk down the ladders to get to the pool of data. And
Right.
that data could be the foundation, right? So that data is the foundation for bringing those together. That's
No,
okay.
that's exactly it because all right, so when you talk about get to the pool of data, mindset
Hmm.
is how you interpret that data.
Right. That's right. Yep. All right. So let's dive into some practical advice and some tools. Are there any specific habits or daily practices that you recommend for cultivating a powerful mindset?
Um
And what would those be? I know I asked a closed-ended question, but
yeah, all right,
let me
so
add that.
I have a different way I want to answer that.
Okay.
Because people think that it's going to be something, oh, if I do these things like this, it's
Hmm.
going to tell me, right? And really, the combination really changes based on the individual. But the first core piece is what you say you want. Does what you do match? Does what you do push you closer or further away from what you want? And once you answer that question, then you can ask yourself the most powerful question after that: why?
Mm,
Next step
yeah.
is, are you doing that? Yes or no? Why?
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
runs it down into the root. So that's the foundational start that you have to
Yeah.
assess, because people are looking at everything in this big grand thing, and you need to break it down into these small incremental,
Hmm.
because that's all it is.
That's right. It's asking the five whys, really getting to the root cause of why your behavior is what it is, and are you really on target or on track or tracking with what you say you want? That's powerful. Okay. All right. Um, so what about can you share any tools, resources, or books that have influenced you in your thinking about mindset and success?
I got a book that well, a few books that I'm a big fan of. One of them is a comic book you hear all the time,
Hmm.
and that is Think and Grow Rich, uh,
Yep.
Napoleon Hill, but
Hmm.
probably more so for me would be Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh,
That book had a huge impact on me,
okay.
because and it's one key thing out of that book that stuck out the most. And it's the that you have to be willing to deny some of your basic self-serving characteristics.
Mm, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because I learned
It's
that
it's
success itself is about denying the self-serving.
it's getting the selfishness out of you and
Mhm.
in building the selfless, right?
Right. And the part in
That's
that
awesome.
that was really good was that it gave an example of how you get a person, let's say you have an idea, right? You have an idea, you
Mhm.
tell a person, and then they go present it, right? Now your
Mhm.
idea is the best thing for the team. And it's not like they're getting something grand or special because they presented it, but you want to be like,
Right.
oh no, that was my idea. Me.
Yeah.
And that becomes more important, that it was you, than the
Right.
actual best idea being out there.
Yeah. It reminds me of you know, one of the teams or organizations I got to lead in former life was such a dynamic, such a powerful team. And one of our foundation principles were, pass the credit, take the blame. And the motto was, we don't care whose idea it is. We want to get it done and we want to get it right the first time. Right. So um that's so important. I think a lot of people miss the mark there, especially as you have young professionals, mid-career professionals that are really trying to get to that next level. Oftentimes, they take their eye off the prize by focusing on the short-term victory, which leads to a long-term, loss or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, that's it's so critical. I appreciate that. And before I move on, I want to get your thoughts or your take on atomic habits.
Oh, I now that book, is it over there? No, I've bought that book so many times and I keep giving it out. Matter of
Yeah,
fact, I have a copy of that book, and I have a second copy for my wife. I said, that's your
yeah.
atomic habit, but this is my atomic habit. But
There you
um,
go.
it's a lot of baseline practicality that I
Hmm.
like, because
Yeah.
once you develop the mindset to become the person that does, you need some very practical ways to do, and that's what I love.
Hmm.
It's very practical.
Yeah. Outstanding. Thank you. So I want to go ahead and because I want to get to a closeout series here of questions, but kind of reflecting, and if we look back, if you look back, how has your mindset developed or evolved over time, and how has that evolution influenced your achievements?
Um, You know, from a pride perspective, it was hard to ever really admit, but I was a person uh that suffered from a measure of anxiety. I would just get
Hmm.
rid just or I would just feel like things weren't meant to work out for me, as if I was so uniquely special that the universe is just out to get me and likes everybody else.
Hmm.
Makes no sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the big thing that I would say when people ask me like what is the biggest benefit that I've had from mindset, it is the fact that I have the inability to worry.
Okay. And so
Like,
that's a huge change. That's like a polar opposite of what you just said, right? So there was a huge dynamic or a huge shift because you went from having major anxiety to not worrying about, was it you said you're not worrying about what others think?
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, usually that's the root cause of anxiety is worrying about what somebody's going to think, right? And so, I mean, it kind of brings us back full circle to, you know, what you do in your career and with your profession with the mindset shift, and just such a powerful approach. Um, that's excellent. I appreciate that. And from a final piece of advice, um, what what would you give to somebody looking to harness the power of their mindset to shape their path to success?
One, I believe that don't try to reinvent the wheel. Don't bump your head along the way. There's plenty of resources out here, and find the resource that not only exposes you to this wonderful, interesting concept, but
Hmm.
actually gives you ways to implement it in your day to day life.
That's
Everything
awesome.
about speed to action.
Hmm.
That's what matters the most. If it doesn't increase your speed to action, it's worthless.
Yes. Yep. And I think where you finished with that is, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. There's so many people that spend a lifetime building knowledge, yet they don't turn around and apply it. And I've been guilty of that myself, and to hear it from another professional to say action, put it into action. It's a common term, well, a common term that I used to share to some of my younger team members, where when you're learning, sometimes on the job training is what's going to stick. And so there's a term that I used to call in IT. It says out of the frying pan and into the fryer.
Yep.
And you're like, that's not an IT term. Well, I used it because there's nothing more scary than when you're supporting an executive and you got to fix the problem in 2 minutes and it takes 15. And those are the times when you learn on the job. You will never forget them because you are taking action. You're researching, taking action, researching, taking action. And it's that take the knowledge, apply, and it becomes wisdom because of the action you took. Very
Absolutely.
powerful. All right. So, okay. So I feel like our viewers have gotten uh, quite a bit of information and knowledge. I don't want to create you know, a mind explosion um, scenario here, but I'd like to close out with some rapid fire questions. There's going to be some questions that we ask, and rip them out off the top of your head, and let's see where it takes us. All right.
Yeah.
Um, so, question number one: what has been the most fulfilling moment in your journey so far, and how does it align with your purpose?
Um, Becoming the man that my wife and kids believe I am.
Love it. Love it. Okay. If you could give one piece of advice to somebody just starting on a similar path, what would it be?
Except that it is only inevitable that you could become what you want and achieve what you want. It's
Mm,
just a matter of time and getting there.
yeah. Okay. This one's going to be a little bit more broad. So, how do you envision the future of your industry or field, and what role do you see yourself playing in it?
Um, well, I think self development is the pathway to the future because just with common and the exposure of it, just with technology, people are seeing
Mhm.
the benefits of it faster, and it's in their face more the results. And what I plan to do is I plan to make a monumental impact where I become a method that people they refer to me as a method.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we've talked about this offline before, but I want to get your I want to give the viewers a perspective a little bit more into the mind of Demond Logan. So who or what inspires you to keep pushing forward even on your toughest days?
Outside of literally my family, it is God, and that
Amen.
outside of my family is God first in them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, I believe God designed my purpose. I'm Christian, and I proudly wave that flag. Um,
Yes.
God designed my purpose, and um, this is the purpose that He has set for me in my life, and I've been blessed enough to discover it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
God gave it to me. I know it's gonna be great. And I know that choosing anything else other than it is a horrible idea.
That's right. It kind of goes back to bumping your head on the wall or,
Yeah.
banging your head along the way. It's like, why are you going to do something, especially when you discover what that purpose is? Very powerful. So three more questions. One is not so tough, but the two are super simple. Um, in one sentence, how would you summarize the purpose that drives you?
And say it again.
In one sentence, how would you summarize the purpose that drives you?
Designed to change.
Designed to change. Love it. All right. Now here are the fun questions. What is your uh what's your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
All right. All right, cool. Yeah. Okay. And lastly, um if you died and went to see, God at the pearly gates,
Mhm.
what would you want him to say to you?
Well done, my good and faithful servant.
Amen. All right. All right. Well, Demond, I can't say again how honored I am to have you on the show today. It's been a blast. I could talk to you for hours on end, but I think our families would be a little upset if we started going into the down the rabbit hole like we do from time to time. So I want to thank you to our viewers. Where can our viewers find you?
All right. So everything social media. One, I have a website, demondlogan.com. Demond is spelled DEMONDLOGAN.com. And then on all the social media platforms, I am Demond Logan or the real Demond Logan.
Okay, the real Demond Logan. All
Yeah.
right.
A few
Well,
other
thank you
Demond
so much, brother.
I
Yeah,
didn't know.
yeah. It's funny when you think about it. It's like, man, growing up, I thought my name was unique, but well,
That's
there
a lot.
are quite a few of us out there, right? So, but Damon, thanks again. Look forward to having you on the show sometime down the road in the future, and maybe prosperous. Continue putting God first in everything you do. God bless.
Thank you, brother.